If something is said with which you disagree, please let us know by writing to us at comments@ksc.
This is DBS Radio Network.
Oh, yeah, you got it. You have got it.
I think I got it.
You're listening to Dave Allen, the Night Hawk.
And Ginni.
And Kelly Powers, too.
Welcome to the Night Hawk.
Good
This
evening.
is Ginni.
Welcome to the Night Hawk. This is Kelly Powers. How is everybody?
Fantastic. How are you, Kelly?
Good, good. So I think we have a really amazing special show set up for this evening.
Yes, we do.
We have our guest, Dr. Jeffery Meldrum. He's actually on hold right now, and I think we could get him on.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's get him on.
Do you want to introduce him?
Once he gets on, I will.
Okay, here we go. Jeff Meldrum, are you in? Doctor?
I'm in.
Hi.
How are you?
You are on the air. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we have a great audience here in the Monterey Bay area in California. I don't know if you've ever been here.
I have honeymooned there. Yeah.
Oh,
Amazing.
perfect. And we have quite a Bigfoot Sasquatch enthusiast group of people that you know, we got a chance to go up to the museum. So I'm jumping too far ahead, but I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure.
So just a little introduction. Professor Jeffery Meldrum brings impeccable academic credentials and traditional scientific perspective to Bigfoot research. He's a full professor in anatomy and anthropology and professor of the Department of Anthropology at Idaho State University. His early work built on Professor Grover Krantz' theories of Sasquatch as a, let's see, I lost my place. Sorry, guys. Anything you want to add on as far as your introduction and who you are?
No, that's fine. I think it'll all come out in the conversation.
Sure. So
Yeah.
you're in Idaho, am I right?
That's right. Yeah, Pocatello, southeastern Idaho.
How is it in Idaho? Are you guys getting ready for the 4th of July?
Yeah. It's just barely warmed up here. We haven't been able to use the pool until just the past week. It was so chilly for so long. So
Yeah, we've been getting hit with a little heat wave here in Santa Cruz, which is kind of not typical.
right.
So I want to introduce you to my co-host. This is Ginni.
I'm Ginni. How are you?
Just fine. Pleased to meet you.
Nice
so
to meet you,
so
too.
let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about you. I mean, let's go back a little bit. Where were you raised? Where'd you grow up?
Oh, I've lived all over kind of the West. My dad worked for Albertsons
Oh,
food markets, and he was began as a produce manager and good at what he did. So the company rarely left him in one place for very long because he would fix it up. They'd shuttle him over to another place that needed some attention. So we went from I was born in Salt Lake, Provo, Portland, Boise, Walnut Creek, California.
wow, you got around.
Yeah, so it since I was in the Pacific Northwest, that's where I first heard of the subject of Bigfoot when I was a youngster.
Sure.
The Patterson-Gimlin film had just come out. We were living in Spokane at the time, actually, and it was one of the first public showings of Patterson's documentary, which showcased the film footage from Northern California.
Right. And that's really, I mean, I know there's a lot of, research and documented evidence of Bigfoot or Sasquatch that goes before that, but I feel like the 1967 Patterson film really kind of made the whole topic explode in North America, at least. Don't you agree?
Oh, yes. I mean, before that, there basically were just these enigmatic, oversized footprints.
Sure.
And people, they might have had some kind of notion of what Sasquatch might have been like, but boy, the Patterson film really, put it right in everyone's lap and very vividly and undeniably. I mean, it either was hoaxed or it was the real thing. There was no ambiguity in between those positions. So
did you get to see it in the theater?
I did, yeah. They had a showing. This was back before a lot of the theatrical showings, and so it was the Spokane Coliseum. So it was a big, oversized screen, and
cool.
I convinced my dad to take myself and my younger brother, and we were on the third row seat. So we were taking
right there.
it all in. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have siblings, or are you only child?
No, I have a brother and a younger sister.
So are they are they in the science profession like you?
No, and I got here by a very circuitous route, but my younger brother also works for Albertsons, and he's probably getting close to retirement now too.
Lucky guy.
I'm not sure what my sister's up to these days.
Okay, so you got a big family.
Yeah. Well, three kids. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I always like to ask about the parents, because I feel like sometimes, we meet people like you that are big in certain professions, and sometimes the parents are in that, but you're an anomaly.
Yeah. It was a little bit different route. I was, one of the first generation kind of my family that went to college, and so my cousins as well, but a lot of my aunts and uncles were not college students, and so yeah, it was a bit of a different turn down that path into academia. I don't know if I would. I would do it again, but I wouldn't necessarily encourage my kids. I have 6 boys of my own, and none of them have followed in those footsteps either.
Right.
Kind of come close, but veered off into industry instead, and probably better off in that situation, especially now. Yeah. Unfortunately, higher education has really got a black eye, and
sure it does.
Tough to live that down. So
well, it's gotten to one of those questions. Do you send your kids? It's tough. Yep. It's tough. So
yeah.
Well, I have some questions obviously set up for you, because our audience we're just a radio show in Santa Cruz, and the Night Hawk, the show that we do, we get into some controversial topics and some stuff a little out of the norm. But we're not Bigfoot, experts. So I thought it would be good to give a little bit of background, and you did kind of get into who inspires you, and obviously the film, I think, is what got you initially interested in the Bigfoot phenomenon, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So what can you tell the audience, what's the difference between Bigfoot and Sasquatch or Yeti or the abominable snowman? Is there a difference?
Oh, well, of some of those. Some of the names are repetitious of one particular entity. So sure. Bigfoot, the name Bigfoot was said to be coined by the editor of the Humboldt Times newspaper, on Andrew Genzoli. And, it's just, the anecdote is he saw these oversized, these 17-inch footprint casts and remarked, quipped, "Wow, that's a big foot," and it stuck. But the stories also go that the construction workers and loggers in the various camps who were witnessing footprints for some decades, even before the first newspaper accounts were widely published, were also using the term Bigfoot as well. It was around, But Sasquatch was derived by a fellow named J.W. Burns, a Canadian who was a school teacher and a writer, an author, worked on one of the reservations or reserves and in Canada, and he coined that term in order to sort of an anglicized version of that was sort of a common denominator of some of the roots of many of the terms that were used by different tribes in that region. So it roughly, I mean, those terms usually translate wild man of the woods.
Right, wild man.
A little, yeah. Now, your question is a good one, though. What about the Yeti or the abominable snowman? If indeed it exists, and the evidence is pretty sparse. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff can be dismissed as misidentification of bear tracks and other bear lore. But if indeed it exists, the best evidence we have as far as footprints suggests a foot very different than the Sasquatch track, which superficially resembles human in that it has a non-divergent big toe. The big toe is lined up with the other toes. The Yeti, on the other hand, has a much more ape-like foot in that the big toe sticks out like a thumb.
Interesting.
Suggesting that it is still a tree-climbing ape that almost certainly inhabits the forested valleys of the Himalayan range, and its tracks are found in those high-elevation snowfields when it's crossing up over a pass from one valley to the next.
So the Yeti is still 8 to 10 feet in height. Am I correct? They're tall like the Sasquatch.
No, they're actually only about 4 or 5 feet tall.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's a common misconception. People probably think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we all thought I think we all thought at one time that the Bigfoot and Yeti and Sasquatch was all the same thing.
Sure, that's a very, very, very common misconception.
Sure.
What's fascinating now is that back in the 60s and 70s in anthropology, it was thought that the pattern of human evolution was a very straight kind of line of progression,
right? With
one species succeeding the previous, and so on, just as a single file march. We now, through the discovery of many more species of human ancestors and human close relatives, know that it's a bush. It's a bushy tree, not a single file tree, and that there were many, many different species coexisting across the landscape. And in fact, some of them, according to the fossil record, have persisted until much more recently than that man would have been acknowledged even 20 years ago.
Right.
And some of those branches may have even persisted into the present in the form of Sasquatch, Yeti, the Russian Almas, which maybe have affinities to the Neanderthal, or the orangutan of Southeast Asia, which is only about 3.5, 4 feet tall, and it may be a relic Australopithecine. So there were branches on this bushy tree that might have persisted alongside us, and so these mystery primates aren't so mysterious now. They're simply relic branches on this bushy tree.
Well, because humans, I mean, there is a lot of species that are discovered daily. I mean, I know a lot of them tend to be like reptilian and insects and things like that, but there is definitely a lot of unknowns on our this big ball we call Earth.
In your book, you said there was 200,000 found periodically. Was that something that I heard in there? Are you talking about
footprints?
No, I was talking about species.
Oh, species. Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if the number goes that high as far as recent discoveries. Sure. No, but yeah, it seems to be, it goes in fits and starts too when expeditions explore out of the way places. When the Vietnam conflict finally was dissipated, and biological survey teams went back into the areas where the fighting had kept scientists away, a whole rash of new species were uncovered that were had not been recognized previously. And so, there was recently an expedition to New Guinea, but it's kind of like the old movie The Lost World, where
Right.
there were these high bluffs and mountain ranges that were isolated from everything, and all sorts of species. A lot of them, as you point out, were certainly not as sensational as a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, but nevertheless they were indicative that there's, as you say, there still are places on this planet of ours that remain to be explored.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. We have such a huge planet, and there's so many places that we can barely get to. So it's not too far, to think that there would be something. I'm very open-minded. Like I think I'm kind of how you are. I want to go where the evidence takes me. But I do like to believe that we have Sasquatch and Bigfoot running around out there. So I know part of you have these cast prints. Am I correct?
Yes, the footprint casts. Mm-hmm.
So tell us about them. What are they, and how many do you have, and how did you get them?
Well, a footprint cast is a means of preserving an impression it left in the ground or snow, even sometimes, by the footfall of a creature.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what drew me into this topic as a professional academic, was witnessing a long line of 14-inch, 15-inch footprints in southeastern Washington state. I mean, there were 35, 45 very clear footprints in the mud. At that time, I cast 7 examples trying to catch some of the variety of the foot shape. Now, as you point out, that collection has been added to until now. Today, I have well over 300 examples of footprint casts from all over North America, as well as even some of these other relic hominoids, as I refer to them, around the world, like the Yeti and the Almas and the Orang-Pendek.
So do you find them, or do people bring them to you?
Well, both. I've done lots and lots of field work over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, I started into this academically, professionally in 1996. So we're talking 18 years.
Sure.
Or no, more than that. What am I saying? Almost 30 years. And I have spent a lot of time, out in the field, finding examples of footprints myself. But also, since these creatures are so rare, and an intentional encounter is very unlikely. Usually, credible encounters or sightings are purely by chance. They're just happenstance. And so other people who have found and documented with photographs or with plaster, or now you can use your iPhone and your LiDAR app and actually scan a 3D model of a footprint.
Yeah. The technology is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a pretty cool website now that it logs a lot of these sightings, and I'm sure you've seen most of these, but I was pretty impressed with the detail that some of you researchers have put into it to log and identify where these are happening. Right.
Yeah, those data sets are very, very useful. It's the nature of the beast is such that, given their rarity and elusiveness, it's really not practical for an investigator, a single investigator, to systematically sample and collect data that can be used to generalize. And so when people are good enough to post or share or submit reports of their firsthand experiences, then that adds tremendously to our ability to try to generalize about the nature and behavior and so forth.
Well,
adaptation.
I feel like that's different, with science and I get the scientific community. You guys all share and work off each other, but it's kind of rare to see everybody kind of put their info out and kind of collectively come together to try to get the most amount of evidence. That's different.
Yes, when that happens, it's great. They're early on, back in the 50s and 60s, even into the 70s, there was a lot of competition.
Sure.
Because the quote hunters, they saw it as a brass ring. The person who snagged that brass ring was going to be rich and famous.
Right. It was like the gold rush.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they were very, very possessive, very territorial.
Well, and that kind of gets into one of the questions I had, why are people faking it? Because that takes so much away from,
well, right.
So obviously it's fame and money and things like that.
Exactly. There you go. That's what it is. And, and today there's another dimension that's kind of a little more mundane, but it can be significant on an individual basis, and that's clicks. The monetization of social media. And so if they've got something that, even if it's perceived as being controversial,
sure,
if it will get people to come and visit the website and click on their link, then they can monetize that.
Well, sometimes it's all about the money, isn't it? Well,
that's right.
Clickbait.
Yeah,
clickbait. So I know, like you said, there is a difference, obviously, in height and weight between these different creatures. So where do you think the species, what's their genes? If there is something like the Bigfoot, what is it? Is it human?
Right.
Is it ape?
No. I think it's there are two theories that sort of straddle the fence a little bit, right at the point of divergence. And the one theory is kind of embodied in the notion of a species known as Gigantopithecus.
I've tried to pronounce that like 15 times on this show, and it never goes right.
Kelly was practicing it today over and over.
I practiced it, and I came to it in my introduction, and I just stopped because I knew it was going to be all bad again.
Well, I think that's why a lot of laymen just call it Giganto.
Okay, I'll go with that. I'll go with Giganto.
I like Giganto.
Sorry,
so,
keep going on.
So according to this theory, you've got a species that potentially is the right size in the right place at the right time,
right,
to be a candidate as an ancestor to Sasquatch. We know that it existed in Asia. It is thought to have gone extinct about 200 to 300,000 years ago.
Okay.
So it survived well into the Pleistocene, and was kind of a primate representative of those Ice Age mega species like the woolly mammoth and the rhinoceros and cave bear and so forth.
Well, getting kind of into that particular topic, they're talking about, kind of cloning and bringing back the woolly mammoth. So what do you think the possibility of doing something with Bigfoot? Is that even
if we could find a specimen that was young enough,
then you could.
So far the youngest dated actual fossil is 300,000 years ago. And they were able to get some collagen, some connective tissue, but they weren't able to get any DNA that they could potentially reconstruct and then maybe clone. But that's an interesting proposition. That would be another way to study.
It would be like what was the movie with the dinosaurs?
Yeah, Jurassic.
Thank you. It would be like we'd have Yetis and Bigfoot running all around.
That's right.
Yeah. So that kind of goes to, the earliest evidence you were getting into that. So how far does this go back from the scientific finding?
Well, depending on which dot we connect the possibility up to. So Gigantopithecus represents one, and it would have survived until the present, just even beyond the 300 to 200,000 years ago.
Sure.
The other possibility, if it is, well, let me back up one step. One thing we don't know for sure about Gigantopithecus was its posture and how it moved. Did it walk 2 legs or not? That's a pretty unusual adaptation that has long been thought to be particular to us and our immediate ancestors.
Right.
Now, there have now been examples found of other apes that were quite adept at walking on 2 legs, and bipedalism, walking on 2 legs, may have evolved in other lineages as well. But if that habit of walking on 2 legs is more unique to us, more particular to us, well, to our family, our broader family tree,
right,
then perhaps Sasquatch is an early offshoot from that tree, something like a Paranthropus or a robust Australopithecine, and which would have gained gigantic proportions or larger proportions through the Pleistocene, as did so many other lineages, and then have made its way into North America. So they would have been close relatives, but just separated a little bit by that divergence between us and our more distant ape cousins.
So any travels or investigations that stand out, that you've done that you want to share? Anything spectacular?
Sure. Yeah. Well, one of my, as I mentioned, one of my first expeditions or field operations, having gotten involved in this, was in the Northern California area. Mm-hmm. It was just basically one ridge over from the Patterson-Gimlin film site. Instead of the Bluff Creek drainage, we were along the Blue Creek drainage, just over the ridge. And it was really a remote area. We were in the Siskiyou Wilderness.
So is that something you backpacked into, or did you have to get, helicoptered in?
We backpacked
Wow.
with the assistance of llamas, pack llamas.
Yeah.
And it was quite the adventure because our intended llama wrangler at the last minute was unable to go with us.
Oh.
And I got a 10-minute crash course in llama wrangling. I became the designated wrangler, and our llamas were recruited from an outfit and that were brought out of retirement. And they did not appreciate being loaded up again. They were wanting to stay retired in their pasture.
Yeah,
so
they weren't wanting to go on a Bigfoot hunt?
I had a horse named Fury that was like that. He was in his 30s. So, Doctor, we need to take a short break. So hold on to those thoughts. We'll be right back, everybody, with the Night Hawk with Dr.
Jeffery Meldrum.
What do you think? We will return shortly. So pay attention and listen up.
Hey, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum with some exciting news. My new book, Turn Back Your Biological Clock, hits the stands on Amazon July 4th. You can get a pre-order copy of the Kindle for just $6.99 by going to formybioclock.com. That's the number 4, clock.com, and order today. The Kindle version will be available for pre-order. This book is filled with the latest information on the ketogenic diet done correctly, intermittent fasting done safely, filled with all the new information from Dr. Dan Pompa on how to fix a cell to get well, how to get rid of heavy metals, how to reduce brain fog, get your body's energy up, There's so much great information in this book. I know you'll love it. Go to formybioclock.com or write to Amazon Books, look up Duncan McCollum, and then click on Turn Back Your Biological Clock.
Hello, everyone. Manuel Rodriguez from Ace Hardware in Watsonville, Salinas, Gilroy, Marina, and Freedom. Please come by and look at our complete assortment of Craftsman power tools, hand tools, and electric tools. We have a full line of Craftsman. Craftsman still carries an exclusive defective warranty. Bring in the old tool, whatever the reason. If it breaks on you, we'll give you a new one. That's still the same product that was sold 50 years ago. So for all your hardware needs, come on by and see us. Again, stores in Freedom, 2 stores in Watsonville, Salinas, Marina, and Gilroy. We're open 7 days a week, 8 to 7 on Monday through Friday, and 8 to 6 on Saturday and Sunday. If you're looking to do any household project, remember, we're here to help you. If we don't have what you're looking for, whether it's a power tool, a hand tool, a leaf blower, we'll be happy to get it for you.
Deer fence, wood fence, livestock chain link, vinyl, iron fence, Cypress Coast fence, Cypress Coast fence.
Hi, my name is Ann Stout, and I recently employed Cypress Coast Fence to help me with a problem I had in downtown Santa Cruz on a rental property I own. I had a wooden fence that people came by and would rip out all the time, and so I talked to Katie at Cypress Coast Fence. She came down and gave me a bid, and we talked about it and looked at all the different options, and then they came and the fence was done in 3 days, and they did a wonderful job, and they were easy to work with, and all the men that were working there did a great job.
Give us a call for your no-obligation consultation at 831-783-1500 or at cypresscoastfence.com.
We don't just build fences, we make good neighbors.
Cypress Coast Fence.
Hi, my name is Nieves Jauregui, owner of Ariana Roofing. We started our business, it's almost going to be 25 years, and we cover the Monterey Bay. We're a little different. We're the oddball in the industry. We have a roofing license which covers new construction, remodels, re-roofs, and conversions. We also do industrial and commercial buildings. We also carry additional licensings because we do a lot of home improvement for customers. We also carry a painting license, a general contractor's license, and an EPA certification from the federal government for lead removal. It's a one-stop shop type deal. To me, one of the most important things is customer service, and we want to thank our customers that have supported us through thick and thin, that have been with us and have been loyal. If it wouldn't be for you guys and gals, we wouldn't be in business. Our contact, we have a cell number, which is 831-750-7044, website, which is under arianaroofing.com. And my email directly is Nieves, Nieves, at arianaroofing.com.
This is the ZBS Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Night Hawk. I'm Ginni.
And I'm Kelly. Welcome back. We have just a recap. We have Dr. Jeffery Meldrum, and he is coming to us from Idaho. He is a full professor of anatomy and anthropology and a professor of the Department of Anthropology at Idaho State University. Still there, Doctor?
Still here.
All right. We're back. Thanks for hanging in there. So let's see, where were we? You were telling us about your investigation, right? You were up in Northern California, which is kind of our neck of the woods, and on the back of the llamas and trying to get them wrangled up. So that's right. Keep going.
Yeah, well, it turned out to be quite the experience. We were there for well over a month, and initially there was our sponsors were a Japanese production company that were doing a documentary, and so they stayed with us the first 5 or 6 days, but we had arranged to be able to stay much longer to really put in the time necessary.
Is that documentary out? Can you see it?
It was never released in full English to English audiences.
So if you speak Japanese, then you're good.
I've not seen the full production myself, just snippets of it.
Okay.
But we did publish a report of our expedition and the experiences and results that we had. And so that was published in the Journal of Cryptozoology.
Cool.
But it was a very amazing experience, because not only did we have or find footprints, examples of footprints in the trail, but we also found or had something come into camp on multiple occasions,
Mm-hmm.
and rifle through our backpacks on one when we were separated. Two of us were separated from the main group, and
that's much more of a like ape characteristic, right? To like get in your stuff and start stealing your food, or no?
I mean, humans are pretty good thieves as well.
You're right about that. I did forget about the nasty old human.
Yeah. But I think it was. I'm not advocating that they are more human-like, but I don't know that would necessarily single. I base when it comes to that contrast. My basis is the anatomy, the extreme bulk, the hairiness, and also the lack of material culture.
Right.
That they don't have tools, they don't have accoutrements like home bases and shelters and fire use and those types of things. So in most of their in their physical characteristics, their anatomies, as well as their behaviors, they line up with the great apes to a much greater degree than they do to humans.
People just associate the humans because they supposedly walk upright. Am I correct?
That's right. So they have that superficial similarity in that regard. But it's amazing to see. Great apes are quite adept. Their bodies are built in such a way that they tend to hold their torsos upright.
Right.
Even if they're squatting or sitting, they're sitting upright rather than prone.
And they're pretty smart. I just watched a video of an ape chain smoking cigarettes. So.
Well, yeah, they can become addicted.
And they were stealing eggs.
And they were stealing eggs out of this guy's backpack.
In the safari.
Yes. So you had you found some footprints. Were you able to cast them?
They weren't very deep, and they were in a very dry, powdery substrate, so they didn't lend themselves. We photographed them extensively.
Sure.
I think the most exciting experience was at one point, two of us had, as I said, had separated from the group and were off quite some distance from the main sort of thoroughfare, the trail system, to investigate some off-trail lakes that at this time of year were shrunken in size, exposing a lot of mud flats. We were hoping that animals crossing the mud flats to get to the water to drink and so forth would leave tracks, including, we had hoped, Sasquatch. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case at that particular location.
So what were they?
Well, there were all sorts of tracks of other animals but
it wasn't Sasquatch.
We just didn't find any Sasquatch tracks there as we had hoped. But as we were camped and before returning to the main group, during the night, we heard these long projecting calls that are so characteristic of Sasquatch, which also, interestingly, is very characteristic of the other solitary great ape, the orangutan, advertises its location, and the males especially defend their territory, or at least advertise their presence in the territory by means of a very raucous, loud call.
Yeah, their calls are very distinct. And I heard, I've been trying to prepare, obviously, for our call, and I've listened to a lot of these videos of the kind of Bigfoot call, and they're very distinct.
They are, yeah.
And the beating on trees and beating against different things.
Yeah, or even possibly thumping their own chests or clapping their hands to make a very loud, resonating call or sound. So something eventually that night came snooping around our camp under the cover of fog, which had rolled in from the coast and made it it was pea soup.
Wow.
But it was something, as I mentioned, was rifling through the backpacks. When we would extricate ourselves from our little bivy tents and sleeping bags, we, whatever it was, would just melt into the fog and disappear. We did find more tracks that suggested that what was disturbing our camp was what we were hoping it was, and big 16-inch footprints in the grass and in the watery, the boggy area next to the spring we were camped adjacent to. But it was so there were experiences like that suggested that we did make some contact, and unfortunately never caught a glimpse. But we did hear footfalls. We saw footprints in the mud. We heard vocalizations. We heard what I had first thought was rocks clacking together. You mentioned the wood knocking.
Right.
Sometimes rocks clacking together. But later I had second thoughts about that, because I read in another researcher, Dr. John Bindernagel's book, an account by a witness who said, as this creature, which she saw at fairly close proximity and in broad daylight, turned and began to retreat away from her, it looked back, it pivoted and looked back at her and clacked its teeth together.
Oh, interesting.
Very loud.
Yeah, I heard that in the book.
Yeah. And so I wonder if that's what
what you heard.
That I heard, yeah.
There
must have been two of them, because the clacking in one direction, adjacent to our tents, out in the fog somewhere, responded to by one in the opposite direction, just opposite of our camp.
So you think that's like a communication,
I
tactic
think
they use?
I think they were sort of
warning each
facing each other. Yeah, warning, or just making sure that they knew where each other was, because it was probably difficult for them to see in that fog as well. But it was
thick as
quite
it was.
exciting.
Even
Quite
being
exciting.
a Sasquatch, you still can't see through the thick fog.
Yeah.
So why do you think the natives and the indigenous people, why is there so much with them? What's the connection there?
Well, for them. I mean, for them it's kind of taboo, so it really isn't that prominently displayed or discussed, with just a few exceptions. Up in the Pacific Northwest of British Columbia, the Coatl tribe has very distinctive depictions of what has been interpreted as Sasquatch in their totems and clan crests, and so their depictions are quite vivid. But otherwise, like down here in Idaho, while they still have the same kinds of stories, the depictions are often much more cryptic.
Well, maybe that's the area that they're at.
Well, that could be. That could be that it may be influenced by, the proximity and how often and frequently they're encountered. But it is an element of their folklore. I mean, almost every tribe which occupies areas that are, ecologically appropriate for such a creature to exist, and even some of those that don't, that did, the tribes haven't been, in their territories since time immemorial. There's been a lot of movement around, and one tribe will displace another, and so forth. And it's interesting, sometimes some of the depictions, especially those that are the more fanciful, a little more sensational, are tribes that are no longer probably in direct contact. They've moved out, like say, out of the forest into the Great Plains, and so they don't have direct encounters anymore, and their stories take on a more folkloric quality.
Right.
But the pervasiveness of the position as you point out, the wild man of the woods is really quite impressive, quite consistent. Yeah.
So, do you think? I mean, they obviously, if they are running around the woods and they're digging through your stuff, like, these have to be pretty intelligent beings, right? And they've been able to stay out of the radar, meaning, people haven't been able to find bodies or like, do you think that if they're around, it's because of their level of intelligence?
Well, I think there's maybe a couple of different explanations. Those aren't, again, all answered by the same factor. But I many people do attribute a level of intelligence by virtue of their elusiveness, and I think that the missing element in the equation is the rarity, the acknowledgement of just how rare these creatures are. And then, so what are the odds that you're going to bump into one?
Right.
They are an apex predator. There is nothing that preys on them. And such species, when they die, it's typically a natural death. It's not an abrupt death like being killed by a predator or by a hunter.
Right.
And so such animals usually, secrete themselves off into some out-of-the-way place when they get old and decrepit or sick.
Right. It's like when your feline will pass away, they'll go find somewhere, like, know, and sometimes you can't find them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a perfect example. And then, and then I also, point to the stories of trophy bucks, for example, trophy deer that go year after year after year and avoid the hunters,
right,
and survive. And so they manage to do that without extraordinary intelligence. I mean, we're in their front room.
Right.
They know the area. They have the skills. They have been adapted and evolved those instinctual behaviors that help them to avoid human contact. And I think the Sasquatch does as well. I wouldn't give the Sasquatch much more intelligence than that of a gorilla.
Okay.
Now, a gorilla, smarter than the average bear.
Right.
They are very smart. And there's a lot of space between a gorilla and a human. I think, it could be even a bit bigger. Some of those early Australopithecines on the family bush, the family tree, they had brains that were, 10 or 15% bigger than a chimpanzee or gorilla for relative to body size. And so, it didn't, like I said, it didn't give them any extraordinary capabilities that, that put them on par with a human by any means, but they're smart. They're smart. I was watching, and I posted something on my Facebook here recently about, sort of an admonition that we need to remember that there are different kinds of intelligence as well.
Sure.
I was watching this little program where the chimp was trained to recognize numbers in a sequence. So it knew the sequence 1 through 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the computer screen, the touch screen, would show 1 through 9 scattered across the screen in different arrangements. And the chimp had to touch them in order, upon which he would receive a reward of some peanuts. Well, then they started doing it where they would flash it briefly, and then all the squares with numbers were covered in white. So he had to touch them in sequence without being able to see
the number,
the numbers, just based on his recollection.
And did he
from
do
that
it?
one.
His memory.
He could do it.
Yeah.
He could do it consistently without making a mistake. It was just, so it just shows how rapidly they process their surroundings and their ability to remember things like sequences and spatial relationships.
Sure.
Because that's what they need to survive. They need to know where the fruiting trees are, when they're going to fruit, how far they are off in this direction, versus another direction. And they visit those same trees over and over and over again as they come into season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different kind of skill than we use.
There was a guy that did a study with his dog, and he had a pile of like 3,000 toys, and he taught this dog. Like, this dog could identify
all the different toys.
Like, out of all these 3,000 toys. It kind of reminds me. Animals are very smart, and they can be taught. We are almost at our 9 o'clock, so we want to carry you through as long as you're okay with that.
Sure.
And we will definitely invite some callers in after our commercials at our 9 o'clock time frame. So just these last few minutes, do you have anything you want to plug? Do you want anybody to follow you, or if they're interested in your research, where can they find it?
Well, sure. I think my book's been mentioned, and
yes,
that still, it was published in 2006, but it still is an excellent primer for someone who is interested. It's also, I would add, because I'm a very visual learner and teacher, it has over 150 figures and photographs, so it's very well illustrated, very engaging with the evidence of all different kinds.
And also, that's Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, correct?
That's correct.
And you can, where can they get that?
They can either get that from Amazon, or there's another good outlet for you Californians, not too far away, called Paradise K Publishing. It can be found at Paracay, that's PARACAY.com. And they carry not only my book, Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, but some of the more recent publications like my field guides, my learning and activity books for young learners or readers. And I would also, for those that really after some good academic treatment, some meat on the bones kind of articles, I edit an online journal with the assistance of a full editorial board. This is a peer-reviewed, registered journal called the Relict Hominoid Inquiry, or RHI for short. And it's an open access. We've been it's been out there for 13 years, so we've got quite an accumulation.
Can you say that one again? It's the Relic Hominoid
Inquiry.
That's it, Inquiry.
Relict with a T, which is the proper use in biology.
Okay.
Hominoid, and then Inquiry. And if you just Google RHI or Relic Hominoid Inquiry, it'll take you there. Otherwise, it's isu.edu/RHI.
All right. Well,
but there are research articles, in-depth book reviews, news and commentary, historical documents, translated foreign papers on other relic hominoids besides Sasquatch, and all kinds of interesting things. And again, very profusely illustrated, lots of good graphics.
Well, we were lucky enough to pick up your field guides at our local Bigfoot Discovery Museum in Felton, California. So thank you for that.
Yes.
They were amazing. Yes. So hopefully he's going to call in. The curator of the museum, I mentioned your name, and he knew who the heck you were. So he was excited to hear that you were coming on. So I just want to remind all our listeners, our phone number is 831-479-1080. This is KSCO Santa Cruz, 1080 AM. We are going to go to a break, and we will be
right back.
We will be right back with Dr. Jeffery Meldrum. So thank you again. Just hang tight, and we'll be right back to you.
If something is said with which you disagree, please let us know by writing to us at comments.
You are listening to the Night Hawk on KSCO Santa Cruz. The earth has shifted and raised the gifted. We are your hosts, Ginni and Kelly. Sit back, relax, and don't touch that dial. Welcome, Night Hawkers.
Welcome back, Night Hawkers.
Welcome back.
I'm Ginni.
I'm Kelly. We are diving into Bigfoot tonight.
Yes,
what do you think,
Sasquatch.
Ginni?
Oh, I enjoy this. This is pretty amazing.
We have a wonderful guest, Dr. Jeffery Meldrum, and we want to invite callers. If you want to call in, our phone number is
831-479-1080.
We will do our best to answer the call. So Dr. Meldrum, are you still there?
I'm still here, yes.
So thank you again for coming all the way to Santa Cruz via the phone line. We appreciate that.
You bet.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Sure.
So, biomechanics and the stride and the weight. So people were thinking at one time that people were making the impressions themselves, and it wasn't made from Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell people about how that's not possible? Because that was in the book, and when I listened to all of that, it was pretty interesting.
Right. Well, I think the simplest point that can be made is if you imagine attaching this very large surface area in the form of an artificially carved prosthetic or false foot, whether it's wooden or latex or whatever material, it's essentially like donning snowshoes. And the purpose of snowshoes is simply to distribute your body weight over a larger area so that you don't sink into the snow.
Right.
And similarly, with no other device or alteration, putting on these very simplistic carved wooden feet that have been proffered as the explanation for all Sasquatch footprints, excuse me, behaves just like a snowshoe. And rather than leaving deeper footprints, you would float on top of the substrate. The only place that hoaxers have really attempted such a feat are in locations that have a very soft substrate to begin with, like a drawn-down reservoir or lake bed,
right?
A beach, and even the beach is problematic because usually the beach sand is so uniform and compacted that it floats.
Well, and it washes away, right?
Well, right, and that as well. Yeah, if it's moist, it probably will be inundated, and then when the tide comes and goes. So it's that's the simplest aspect of it. But then you add to that the transparently fabricated appearance of these carved wooden feet, especially those that were trotted out by the Wallace family that laid claim to having made the footprints all over the western United States. They have toes that look like Easter eggs, right, lined up along a ruler. They have exaggerated split balls and other features that just are not natural, and they're just absolutely flat with no topography, no natural contours, oftentimes even without the natural rounded edges of a compliant sole pad,
right,
as opposed to a hard wooden plank. And so now there have been a couple more recently that were a little more creative. One in particular that was laid down up at Elby, Washington. This will kind of give away one of the tales, but I think it's been repeated often enough already. But the person made a pretty anatomically interesting or convincing carving of a foot with a little more contour and a little more bending kind of flexion of the toes. But the big tell, the giveaway, was he added a flexion crease that separated the big toe from the other toes. It looked like the crease you have on your palm along the edge of the base of the thumb, the drumstick part of the thumb.
Right.
The only reason that crease is there on your hand is because your thumb can cross over
Yeah.
and oppose the other digits.
Right.
Well, you can't do that with your foot.
No.
And neither can Sasquatch. So there is no
an ape can't do that with their foot?
Well, yes, if they have a divergent big toe, which looks like a thumb.
Right.
But the Sasquatch foot doesn't. So
Looks
they
like a
probably,
foot.
like as you point out, they probably picked up that feature by looking at an ape's foot and thought, I better include that.
Right.
But it's incoherent. It does incongruent. There we go. Is a better term. Incongruent with the anatomy of a non-divergent big toe. So it was a big red flag. Immediately pointed out that they were not anatomically realistic. So
we have a caller. We're going to see if we can bring him in.
Okay.
Caller, are you with
there?
us?
Hi, yes. I just had a question if on any of his adventures he's ever got...
Hang on. What's your name and where are you from?
My name's Gary. I'm from Capitola, California.
Welcome, Gary. Go ahead. This is
Hi,
Dr.
Gary.
Jeffery Meldrum.
Hi. I was just wondering if on any of his adventures he's ever got to try anything like Forrest Galante does in his hunt for the thylacine and other cryptids, where he would set up trail cameras in areas which are considered hot with sightings.
Right. Yes. We've used and taken advantage of the technologies that have been available up until recently. So yes. In fact, on that expedition I was describing in California, there were no such things as trail cameras, but we had some of these very early models of cameras that had been wired creatively with the triggers, and then actually had to physically string fine thread trip lines across the trail to trigger them. But now, more recently, yes, we've used third generation night vision. We've used thermal imaging, FLIR, and now I just went blank on the name of the other company that we've used. But yeah, now the only things we haven't tried, we did a little dabbling with some possibilities for drones, both multi-copter style as well as the lighter than air.
Do you think the drones, they would hear them and that would detour?
I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're loud.
Yeah, I think it's not an ideal. They have some that are small enough, and you can get high enough that they barely are discernible, at least to our ear. Who could say what they're capable of hearing? But yeah, it's like having a little bee's hive there in the sky overhead. And the disadvantage is that the thermal imaging that would really help with differentiating can't penetrate through the forest canopy.
Right. It's too thick.
And they really don't have good resolution unless you go out in the wee hours of the morning or late night, once everything is cooled off. Then there's enough contrast between the body heat and the surrounding. Otherwise, the rocks that sit out in the sun, even the tree trunks and treetops, still have absorbed a lot of heat.
And they're showing heat signature.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's less differentiation with the critters alongside. So we kind of hit. Today it's people doing the same thing. We've kind of hit a plateau.
Right.
And until I've been in communication with some LiDAR techs who tell me that we're not quite there, but soon the resolution will be of a quality that you could actually count the individual deer and bear and moose and Bigfoot and tell the difference between them with LiDAR. So when that happens, then we can do the kinds of surveys. But even then, the multicopters, they're getting better, but the airtime is
What is LiDAR?
Battery life is. I'm sorry. What is LiDAR?
What is it?
It uses a laser to penetrate down to the ground.
Wow.
And map. If you've ever seen these surveys that they've done in Central America over the Yucatan,
right?
And it sees through all the jungle, and suddenly all these pyramids and plazas and streets and boulevards are revealed. So imagine a Bigfoot walking down one of those.
I mean, that would be pretty amazing.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. So anything else, Gary? Any other questions you want to ask?
No, but as he's saying that, I thought this would probably be too hard to do. But when they monitor sewer water for diseases, like they were saying, parts per billion for COVID, and they could tell if things are going up or down.
Yeah.
I wonder if you're in a hot area, if that would probably be way too expensive, but to water monitor and do some parts per billion, well, you don't know what their DNA is, so you probably couldn't.
Well, one of the other lines of instrumentation that I think is, the future holds is this environmental DNA. So very similar to what you're suggesting. You go out, for example, say there's a body of water, a large pond with streams flowing in, and you can then filter large quantities of water and collect the DNA, the fragmentary DNA that has been contributed from bodily fluids from all the forest creatures in that vicinity. And then that is subjected to a battery of universal primers, and you hopefully find a non-human primate DNA sample. Now, the challenge to this remains that we're looking at potentially a species that is more closely related to us than any other. So they say chimpanzees are anything from 96 to 98% identical to us. This creature might be 99 or 99.5 or 99.7% identical to us.
So is that something they're doing now, or they're working towards?
Well, they have these technologies, but the challenge will be to recruit a laboratory and a funding agency or individual or foundation that will see it through, because you're going to have to do an exhaustive sequence analysis in order to find that 0.3% that differentiates from us.
Yeah, you're digging through a lot of DNA, I imagine, if you're pulling samples.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you first have to piece all that DNA back together, because environmental DNA very frequently is rather beat up and chopped up and fragmented. And so, it would be like having a 5,000-piece puzzle without the benefit of the cover of the box.
So do you think AI technology could, dig through a lot of that obviously quicker than humans could?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think those two technologies are developing hand in hand, and you're absolutely right. You raise a very good point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Gary, for calling. We're gonna
Thank you guys
moving
for
on,
answering.
and we appreciate you
Thanks for
calling.
listening to KFCO.
So I want to remind everybody that this is KSCO Santa Cruz, and you're listening to the Night Hawk. We are talking to Dr. Jeffery Meldrum, and he is digging into everything Bigfoot with us. We've gone over a lot. We've gone over, who you are and how you got into it. And why don't you give another plug for your book, so that way anybody out there interested, they can get your field guides and make sure and plug the one where you're making the most amount of money, because I'm sure Amazon's not necessarily that one.
Well, yeah, it just depends. You don't make
it's a
much
labor
money
of love
selling the books yourself. But Sasquatch Legend Meets Science is it really is the I think the foundational book. If you are interested in this topic, it is a must read, and that's not being self-aggrandizing at all or self-promoting. I'm really feel strongly about that, given the books that are out there.
No, I can vouch for this, because like I said before, I am not a Bigfoot specialist, and as I was diving into a few topics and guests to come on, because we like to talk about the unknown. Yeah, the unknown and the stuff that's not really talked about on every single radio show or podcast or whatever. And when I mentioned your name to anybody that had to do with anybody in this field, you are kind of the who's
the
who.
Sasquatch expert.
Yes, so we are honored to have you on, and we appreciate you being here. So go on. It's Paracay, correct? I'm going to let you do it because I think you know it better than I do.
Oh, right. Yeah, if you want to get it from the more local distributor, it would be paracay.com. Otherwise, you can find it on Amazon for sure. But also, Paracay has the field guides, and the one is the Sasquatch Field Guide, which is also a great little primer for if you want to get out there and do it yourself. It's sort of a how-to collect and identify and differentiate and document and preserve and report the various types of evidence. And there's a little bit of contextual information about Sasquatch, what it might be, where it might have come from, and so forth.
And it's laminated very nicely. I'm looking at it right now. You guys
can put it in your backpack.
Will not regret picking up this field guide. And we have the other one, too. So what's the other one?
Well, the other one, I cast the net a little more broadly. I had intended to start another book about that time, which was going to, as we discussed in the first hour, address this question: what's the relationship of the Yeti to the Sasquatch? Mm-hmm. What are these other relic hominoids? So the working title for that one was going to be Sasquatch and Other Wild Men, the Search for Relic Hominoids. But as often happens, since things get in the way, and so since the little field guide, the Sasquatch field guide, was so well received, we decided to do a shrunken head, sort of an abstract of that book project as the second field guide to look at relic hominoids around the world. And so you can learn about the Russian Almas. Could it be a persistent population of Neanderthals? And after the discovery of the little Homo floresiensis, the hobbit, could there really be still little Australopithecines in the mountainous jungles of Southeast Asia and the islands of Indonesia? It's a fascinating question. It's interesting that one of the first books written about this topic was one that some of your listeners might know of. It's by Ivan Sanderson. Mm-hmm. It was Abominable Snowman, Legend Come to Life. And in that book, Sanderson concluded that there were at least 4 types of subhuman hominoids still on the planet. And he had a Sasquatch type, he had a Neanderthal type, he had an ape type in the Himalayas, and he had these little, he called them proto-pygmies in Southeast Asia and a few other spots around the globe. But it's so interesting that that was published in 1962, and at that time, the notion of a bushy tree with other species of bipedal hairy hominoids was heresy. Yeah. That was not accepted, and so his book was viewed as just a work of fiction, of fantasy.
And why is that? Is that because the people were more religious at that time, or like what? Why was that?
No, it was because the scientists thought that evolution of the human lineage was a single file march,
right?
Because it was one niche that could only occupy one species. So bipedalism, enlarging brains, and material culture was an exclusive club, and there could only be one species in it at a time. We were it now,
right?
So there was no room to accommodate the suggestion that there might be some other rather human-like species coexisting in various remote corners of the planet. So it was rejected. It was rejected outright, and he never got the acknowledgement, the recognition for his very interesting research.
And so now it's pretty much like people go to that, correct?
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, it's a great reference. It was like an encyclopedic treatment of the topic all around the globe.
Yeah.
He just had done so much world traveling with his collecting and studying of exotic animals, and he had a fascination for all things that were mysterious and unexplained.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've done some traveling too. I mean, you did some stuff in Siberia and you went to Russia. Am I correct?
Yep, went to Russia and to China.
You went to Russia and you crushed their dreams, right? They thought they had found something, and you're like, nope, it's a fake.
Well, one trip was very good. Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, it's interesting because the county commissioner, the equivalent of one of our county commissioners who was promoting that whole thing, just recently, a year or two ago, came out publicly. He was going to retire, and I guess he decided to clear his conscience.
Yeah.
And he acknowledged publicly that the whole thing was just a sham to promote tourism and winter sports in that region.
Well, it probably worked, I imagine.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there were little ski chalets popping up all over, and the gas stations had statues of the wild man wearing snowboarding outfits and helmets.
Awesome.
And it was just like here. They were exploiting it commercially, and this was an opportunity to get it in the press, in the paper.
So did when you said, like, sorry guys, this isn't real, what was it? Because I think it was like a bear or something. Am I correct?
We had gone to a cave where there supposedly was evidence, and there were footprints that had been planted. But the curious thing was they were all just, I think it was left feet. There were no right footprints, just left. And I made the joke. Of not realizing the cameras were running at the time. I said, what, the Yeti just, because they use the term Yeti in a generic sense for wild men. I said, what, the Yeti's playing hopscotch in here?
What a rookie move. Use only the left feet?
Yeah. And they found a tuft of hair that was clearly rabbit fur. And then they turned the cameras on me and said, well, Dr. Meldrum, what do you think about all this? And I said, well, I tried to, kind of redirect it a little bit. And I said, well, look, here we're it's a wet cave. There's a stream running down through the one side. And I said, animals aren't going to just lay on this wet floor. They're going to bring materials in, vegetation in, and make a nest.
They're going to make a nest.
And right as if on cue, one of the fixers turns his flashlight over, and here in this little alcove under the dry edge is a bed of dried ferns. Just as if you were in a hotel and the bed was turned down with chocolate on the pillow,
Somebody had just made the Yeti a beautiful fern bed to sleep in.
I was persona non grata.
Did they escort you kindly to the airport immediately?
Or the train?
Well, it was I tell you, there was one point where they are very avid drinkers and toasters.
No, in Russia?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The vodka flows.
I bet it does.
And so I'm not an alcohol drinker, and so I was kind of getting by just drinking fruit juice or water instead. And somebody didn't think that was kosher, so they snuck over and filled my glass with vodka before I could find some fruit juice to put in there.
Wasn't that nice of them?
And then Mr. Mark Makuta said, he turned to me and asked me to lead the group in a toast, even though I had been the stick in the mud, so to speak, the party pooper.
Yeah. Well,
and I was kind of put in an awkward position.
That's rude.
And
There's a lot of people that don't drink for a lot of reasons.
Right.
It could
So
be
anyway, it all worked out fine in the end. But for a minute there, I thought I was going to get rowed out on a rail.
Yeah.
Because it was not going along with the
program.
Or end up in a Russian gulag or something.
Yeah.
Right. And then so you also you were in Siberia for a conference, right?
Well, that was all part of this event.
Right. Right.
Exactly. And
well, we're going to take one last commercial break. Hold that thought. I'm sorry to bring it up right as our commercial. Hang on just 2 minutes and we'll be right back. This is KSCO Santa Cruz.
And this is the Night Hawk.
With Kelly and Ginni.
What do you think? We will return shortly. So pay attention and listen up.
This is the ZBS Radio Network. Coast to Coast AM, coming to a universe near you tonight.
What happens if the grid goes down? Do you have a plan? I'm George Norrie, and join us on our next program with Hugh Simpson and Rich DiSabatino as we talk about surviving with the grid down, and later on, manifestation of your best life with Kathleen Bierkin on Coast to Coast.
Warp Drive for the mind. Coast to Coast AM.
Hey wine lovers, Armitage Wines is a family-owned winery producing the best estate-grown Pinot Noir in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Take a short drive to Scotts Valley and visit our estate rich in local history. Gather your friends for a glorious afternoon of wine tasting on our sunny patio overlooking vineyards and Monterey Bay. Open weekends plus special events throughout the year. Use discount code MAMABEARS when making your reservation. Visit ArmitageWines.com. That's ArmitageWines.com.
Hey, this is Pam from the Money Move Show, Thursdays, 3 to 4 p.m. My show is all about tips and tools to help you manage your own personal finances. Want to get better with your money? Join me Thursdays, 3 to 4 p.m. for Money Moves. Need to get a budget together? Do you know what a personal financial statement is, or how to make one, how to read one, or why you would want one? How about setting up your taxes, health insurance? So many things that we need to learn as adults. Thursdays, 3 to 4 for the Money Move Show. And we'll talk about all those things. Tips and tools to help you manage your own personal finances. If you have any questions, you can always call me at DCD Insurance here in Santa Cruz, 831-423-8542. 831-423-8542. The website is dcdis.com, like dog, cat, dog insurance service, dcdis.com.
Coast Paper and Supply is a local family-owned business for over 60 years and continues to be the one-stop local supply source for supplies needed for businesses large and small, school districts, special events, or for your home. They specialize in paper towels, toilet and facial tissue, retail packaging and supplies, janitorial and eco-friendly cleaning supplies, disposable food service items, and shipping boxes and supplies. Discover why many local businesses, schools, and people purchase from Coast Paper and Supply. Well, it's because of their excellent customer service with a smile. You can find Coast Paper and Supply at 151 Josephine Street in Santa Cruz, open weekdays 8 to 4:30, or you can give them a call at 831-423-3350. That's Coast Paper and Supply, a proud member of Think Local First.
You can get almost anything on the internet except personal service. Hello, I'm Scott Bedell with Bedell Nelson Harbert Insurance, your allied agent in Santa Cruz. When you call Bedell Nelson Harbert, a real person will answer the phone. A real person will help you save money by packaging your home and auto insurance with Allied. We can even help you save on your vacation rental with the Foremost Insurance Group. Give us a call at 426-3700 and ask a real person for a free, no-obligation quote. We are the real people of Bedell Nelson Harbert Insurance, and we can save you money because Allied and Nationwide are on your side.
You are listening to the Night Hawk on KSCO Santa Cruz. The earth has shifted and raised the gifted. We are your hosts, Ginni and Kelly.
Welcome back, Night Hawkers. This is the Night Hawk, and you're listening to Ginni
and Kelly. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We have Dr. Jeff Meldrum on the line for our last 20 minutes or so. So if you guys are interested, anybody has any questions for him, our number is 831-479-1080. Are you still there, Doctor?
I'm still here.
Thank you. I know it's late for you. I appreciate you sticking with us and
thank you for being
on
the phone with us.
So let's see. Is there anything that we haven't, gotten into for, maybe?
Let's ask a question. So have
Ginni
you
has
heard
one.
of Shasta shamans, the shamans in Shasta, and sightings and studies with Bigfoot, Sasquatch?
No, I'd have to say that doesn't ring a bell specifically. No.
Supposedly there's some shamans up there that
Okay.
they have some I don't know, ancient stuff. So I think we have a caller.
Yeah, let's take this caller.
All right.
Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
What's your name and where are you from?
This is Michael Rugg. I'm at the Bigfoot Museum.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for calling.
Hi.
We have Dr. Meldrum here. He can hear you.
Yes, hey, Michael.
Oh, you're there. Am I talking on the air right now?
Yeah, you're on the air, but we need you to turn the radio down a little because we have a back feed going.
Here, he can hear you. There you go.
Okay, are you there?
Oh, there you are.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, thank
Hi,
you.
Dr. Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you? Good to hear you.
Oh, great. It's been a long time no see.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I just called because the Bigfoot Museum is probably, it is going to close this year.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I thought I'd make the announcement on your show here.
So, how come it's closing? Are you are you ready to retire or what's going on?
Well, it's that's part of it, but it's it has expenses. It's hard to keep it going, and I'm going to be in a position where I just can't afford to do it. I'm going to have to sell the property.
Well, do you hear that, people of Santa Cruz? Get your you-know-what's up to Felton and visit our friend with this iconic museum. You guys can get to see all the prints, and he's got maps with all these different Sasquatch and Bigfoot sightings. Get up there and support our local business.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got all the stuff Jeff was talking about that he published too.
Yes, it's there. You can get Jeff's books.
That's where we bought it.
That is where we got our field guides. And, it's so important to keep this stuff going that we really need our local communities. I know we've been hiding inside with COVID, and it's time to get in the sunshine, people. Go visit our friend at the Felton Bigfoot Museum, please.
Off of Highway 9.
What's your address up there?
It's 5497 Highway 9.
All right. And if anybody, you have interest in this, donate to his cause. This is something we should keep going. And he's a wonderful man. So we appreciate your call. Anything you want to say to him, Dr. Meldrum?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's kind of an inevitable outcome, I realize, but it would be great if someone listening saw this as a great, entrepreneurial opportunity and stepped up and kept this thing going. I would just hate to see Mike have to dismantle the remarkable collection that he's assembled there, and it's just, I remember the first time I walked in, it was just overwhelming. He had every square inch from floor to ceiling
covered, just
packed with all kinds of interesting artifacts, and not to mention his fantastic artwork. I still have the sketch you gave me of the Sasquatch, which bears a remarkable resemblance. I keep wondering if that was a self-portrait. Walking through the forest, accompanied by all the different
all the animals.
Yeah, that's framed just inside my walk-in closet on the wall still. So
all right.
I think about the museum frequently. daily almost.
Well, you know what we can do is I'll start reaching out to some people that I got in contact with just because of this radio show and the interview with Dr. Meldrum, and we'll see if we can drum up some buzz to keep this thing going.
Yeah, that would be terrific.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, well, we will come back up and see you. The Night Hawk, we will reach out to you, and we'll see if we can get a plan together to get, some events going, some things happening up there to get people educated and get them enjoying our local gems in Santa Cruz County.
Yeah.
And
we had a sighting just 8 or 9 months ago.
In Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Where was it?
Yeah, it was in the forest at Nicene Marks.
Mm-hmm.
Above Aptos, yeah.
Oh, that's right by my house.
Yeah, not too far.
We've had several reports from that area. And we've got a map on the wall that's covered with pins where they've been seen in the general Santa Cruz area. Between here and Los Gatos, clear up to San Mateo.
Well, if any of you have had any Bigfoot sightings, make sure to call the museum. What's your phone number over there?
The landline is 335-4478.
So it's 831-335-4478.
Yes.
All right, you guys, we're counting on our local Santa Cruzians. We need you to call and support, and the people from Monterey and the San Francisco Bay, anybody that's listening.
San Jose.
And
all
San Jose.
Over. Salinas, Watsonville.
Well, thank you for calling. Anything else you want to say?
No, I just wanted to say hi to Jeff and let him know I'm still here, but just barely.
Just hanging in there.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate it. We'll be in touch.
Okay, Jeff.
Thanks for calling, Mike.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Have a wonderful night.
Well, that's not good news that I wanted to hear tonight. I mean, really, the whole point of this interview is to, I feel like there's got to be a younger generation that's interested in the
Bringing
unknown.
Awareness to the unknown.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of that? Do you have a lot of younger people reaching out to you?
Oh yes, and it shows the sales of the book. And I hope people don't think you get rich selling books like this.
We know. Hang on, we're going to pull this caller on, so just give me 1 second, okay?
Uh-huh.
Caller?
Yeah.
Hi, what's your name and where are you from?
Yeah, T in Monterey. I was want to call you last Thursday.
Hi, T. Thanks for calling. Thanks for coming back. We have Dr. Jeff Meldrum on, and he can hear you.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. My brother's actually the one that's really into it, my brother Kirk. And, he's listening, but he's very shy. He's almost as shy as Bigfoot is elusive. But I really was trying to get him to call. But, Jeff, he's a big fan of yours. And, he highly recommends your books and everything. And I'm kind of sorry to hear about the Felton local museum is struggling. So I do hope everyone goes out there to patronize that. But I was calling because I heard Kelly mention the shaman, and my brother is so much into the Bigfoot lore that he goes to Mount Shasta a couple times a year, and I think that's one of his biggest life goals is to actually have a sighting, which he's not done that, and it hasn't happened yet. But he has talked to the shaman there, and the shamans say that they have had contact with Bigfoot Sasquatch. So, but I wanted to see, for my brother Kirk, for the next time he goes there, or if you have any recommendations where he might go to try to have a sighting, and any recommendations on what someone could do, what kind of, what if there are ways they might be able to hide or be stealthy? Is this something is it more we're going to have a success in the evening time with, like night vision or infrared, or could it be any time? What kind of camera equipment, I guess telephoto lenses, can you have the the automated cameras set up and all that. I just want to see if you had any suggestions on what he could do to have a little more success with contacting.
Yeah. Well, all the things you said were great suggestions in their own right, in one way or another. It's hard. I mean, there is no magic formula, and there is. Well, I mean, from the starting point, it comes the realization that almost without exception, encounters are purely by happenstance. There rarely are any intentional interactions and encounters. And in fact, the ones that are the people who lay claim to weekly, every weekend they have interaction with and activity, it always sets off a red flag. And usually when you press them, their activity consists of bumps in the night and feelings of being watched, or things extremely subjective, non-evidentiary experiences that are probably have nothing to do with Sasquatch. So it's tough because these creatures, as rare as they are and as mobile and far-ranging and generalized in their habits and diet and so forth, there is just really no way to predict. You can look at at Mike's map on the wall and get an idea of some of the historical trends, but even those, there's exceptions, and there to every pattern that occurs. I tell people that the best thing, I mean, if you have an area that has some history, that has and has the appropriate habitat, it has thriving wildlife. If there are bear, there's a good correlation between bear habitat and the parameters of the potentially Sasquatch habitat. But then just frequent it. It's kind of like buying a lottery ticket or a scratch card. If you don't buy one, you'll never win.
You can't win if you don't buy it.
That's right. And the more you buy,
you
the better
might
your
win.
odds. So if you're close to an area that you've identified, such that you can spend a lot of time, you can get familiar with the lay of the land, where the resources are located. When you start seeing other wildlife, you're becoming more in touch with the residents, then you have a better chance. But boy.
Hey, T, have you been up to the Bigfoot Discovery Museum in Felton?
With your brother?
No, I need to go there. Well, one other thing I was going to mention is I mentioned to you all last Thursday is that I've been using artificial intelligence to write Bigfoot-related content. I've written some, collaboratively, I guess I can say, I've written some stories and poem. And what I want to do next is write some songs. I'm a bass player, and I was wondering if it's known about any particular sounds that Bigfoot might be attracted to, because I know with the bass you can do like very low frequencies that can carry long distances, and
you mean
I
like
was
the
kind of
duck
wondering,
call, but like a Sasquatch?
yeah.
Call?
I just want to see if there's anything known about, maybe they have any curiosity about anything that I just kind of joking about that they'd become singing songs about them out in the forest, but I am wondering if there's anything that might be pique their curiosity, like sounds or things like that. And of course we'd want to have everything to be very calm and peaceful and benevolent, because we wouldn't want to scare it or anything.
That's a good question.
Right. Well, I can cite anecdotes where it does seem that there was curiosity and interest when someone was playing musical instruments. We've tried it on. We've tried it. I mean, one that immediately comes to mind was a woman who was playing a penny whistle, and she's quite the musician, and she was out in the woods. I don't know if it was. See, this is part of the problem, is the distinction between correlation and causation, and so we don't know if it was the whistle that was attracting it, or if maybe it was her pack goats that she had along with that attracted it. The smell and appearance of these funny-looking non-residents.
Maybe they were hungry. And they thought
well,
they could have some lunch.
That possibility too. So I've one of my colleagues that I work with in the field plays the squeeze box, and boy, he has just an ear for music, polkas, and all sorts of folk music, and we use that in the field to see if we could attract some attention. And it's hard to say. We had some things, vocalizations, and we've had footprint finds that I don't know that they were the direct result of that, but it couldn't hurt.
Maybe you need to go on and listen to the Sasquatch sounds and try to replicate that and do the mating call.
Yeah, the Sasquatch sounds, that was pretty interesting. Kelly was playing that.
Anything else, too? We got one more call behind you, so...
Oh, no, I'm glad you're getting a lot of calls. Jeff, Dr. Jeff, I really appreciate you being on, and I really hope you can be a frequent guest. And I think you should get I think it was a mic up at Felton there. Maybe have him on as a segment sometime and kind of really promote his museum up there, because I think that's a really good resource, an asset that we really don't want to see go away.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, T, for
All
calling.
right, great show. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
We got the next one.
Caller, thanks for waiting. Tell us where you're from and your name.
How are you guys doing?
Great,
Numa
thanks.
from Santa Cruz.
Hi, Numa.
Originally from the woods of BC, so
yes.
I followed them down the coast.
Numa was the Sasquatch that migrated to California.
That's right. I grew up. We'd go up to a local ski hill, and I'd always look in the woods as we were driving by, hoping to see a little glimpse.
Did you ever see
one?
one?
A few times I saw, the mind plays tricks.
Sure.
But I really enjoyed listening to the show. Great show, you guys. And I had a question for Dr. Jeff. If you are you familiar with the stoned ape theory?
The stoned ape theory?
The stoned ape. As in that our ape ancestors came across psilocybin mushrooms, and that sort of helped the brain develop.
Stoned, like weed smoking stoned.
Yeah.
I missed out if that's what you were referring to. I've heard of it, and I've read just very superficially. So, but I don't know if I don't know enough of the tenets of the hypothesis to really comment on it, I'm afraid. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I was just curious if you had any thoughts as how it would relate.
What is it, Numa? Can you give us like a little breakdown on what it is?
The synopsis is basically that as we move from foraging in pastures and living in monkeys living in areas where there was plentiful cow droppings, that it's possible that psilocybin mushrooms helped sort of elevate the brain waves and elevate the intelligence, if you will. So I was just kind of wondering how that would relate to the evolution, because obviously we've evolved from we had Neanderthals, we've had a variety of different versions pre-human of humanoids.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's it's kind of hard. I mean, I don't know if anyone has proposed, a real mechanism by which achieving higher states of consciousness with those hallucinogenic chemicals would actually result in the evolution of enlarged brains, or large brains, or enlarged or improved wiring, connectivity, and so forth. But you never know what stimulus is going to be in play to cause or to promote. I always got a kick out of 2001 Space Odyssey, the monolith. In the movie, it gives the impression that the monolith is somehow actually engineering our ancestors to advance them along their evolutionary path. But I read this one essay where they preferred to think it was simply the presence, the appearance of the monolith that shook some individuals out of their routine, out of the doldrums of their day in and day out routine, and that novelty of thought was the spark that set the wheels in motion. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to view it, and so whether it's a monolith or whether it's a mushroom, I don't know.
It even might be AI.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
AI might monolithically move intelligence forward, even for us.
Well, guys, we have about 3 minutes left in the show, and we have one caller left. So thank you, Numa, so much for calling. We're going to take the last caller.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Numa.
Thank you, Numa.
All right, thanks. Great show.
Thank you. Caller, what's your name? Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm Boyd, and I'm from Capitola here.
Welcome, Boyd. You're
Hi,
talking
Boyd.
to Ginni and Kelly and our Bigfoot specialist, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. We have about 2 minutes, so you got about a minute to squeeze it all in.
All right. Well, couple questions or comments or two, real quick. Let's just think about what Terence McKenna said about novelty creating universe. We're not headed into entropy. We're actually drawn from a point in the universe that is attracting and making more things. Plus, I think it's unusual or usual for Hollywood to say, okay, this is a mechanistic, technology that created smarter monkeys. Well, I don't think so.
So what do you think?
What do you think?
Well, I think we're all wonderful beings of light, and we're living these lives just to play out what we wanted to do, like God does. Creates multiplicity and novelty.
Well, thank you for calling, Boyd. We've got literally like 30 seconds, and we're going to get cut off. We will have Dr. Meldrum back on as long as he'd love to come back on with us. I want to give another plug, for him and thank him for coming on. It's been a wonderful interview. I really, really hope you will come back on. Remember, his books are out there. Can you say it again really quickly? Where they can find your book?
At either Amazon or Paradise K, parak.com, Paracay.
And his book is Sasquatch, Legend Meets Science. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor, for coming on.
Thank you so much.
It was a wonderful
interview,
and I've learned so much, and I think next time we talk, I'll have a little bit more education, I hope. So.
You're listening to the Night Hawk.
I hope I do too as well.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.